The University of Southern California is hosting its 2011 Institute on Entertainment Law and Business. Stay tuned for remarks from panelists in the discussion titled Back to the Basics, Complex TV Rights Deals.
Core business. I mean, that's really the key. The financial end of the deal is important, but I think even more important is making sure that when we sell the show to 20th or to Showtime and they produce a U.S. version based on a foreign format, that our client's core business is protected. And that means that our client can go and do what he needs to do in terms of licensing the format to other territories so there's no restrictions, and continue to distribute the mothership. That is the original foreign version. Our clients like to talk about the child cannibalizing the mother. And often when we sell a show in the U.S., the U.S. financier and distributor wants very broad rights, international distribution rights, and that can have a big impact on the client's business.
Well, Sandra, your studio put a lot of money in developing a show, marketing a show for the biggest market. So how do you feel about these format rights over the tertiary markets, trying to prevent you from distributing your show outside North America?
I think they need to recognize that it is bringing a great deal of value to their property that is otherwise unknown in the United States, which is the biggest market. So if I'm going to invest as much money as I'm going to invest in the development, production, and distribution and marketing of this U.S. version of their property, I need to know that my rights are as broad as possible. I want my rights to be as unrestricted as possible, and I might even ask to participate in any added value that I bring to their property. So there are times when we will ask to participate in their future format sales because we have added value to their property and believe that that's a rightful return in consideration of our investment. I want to be ability to do my own theatrical versions of my television series. I want them to do a theatrical version. I want the ability to do derivative productions, novelizations, comic books, whatever, without restriction, without competition. I don't want them distributing their property in the United States, but we will make exceptions we'll freeze the rights for a while sometimes. We'll make exceptions for distribution of the property in other languages. So our interests are in conflict with the format rights holders' interest in the sense that they're trying to preserve as many of their rights as possible, and I'm trying to restrict them because they're in essence competitive to them. So therein lies the conflict. Of course, the rights holder wants to participate in my profits, and my belief is I've added such value to the property by bringing the resources that I bring to it that I want to minimize their participation as much as possible, and their rate of control.
It's funny that the U.S. is actually the biggest territory. Germany, I think, is second, maybe UK is third. But from our client's point of view, many of our clients that are format owners or distributors are very large foreign broadcasters, like ProSieben in Germany, for example. And they look at the U.S. as just another territory. And if they make a deal, great. It can be fruitful, but it's not essential. And that's a big difference when, as opposed to representing the owner or the author of a book, for example, where they really want a platform to expose the book to, millions of potential viewers of the film or TV show. The economics and the bargaining positions of format owner are very, very different. And so it creates, some challenges, I think, for making those deals.
I think Craig's setting me up because we're just starting at format. So I don't believe a word he said.
The show's already on the air in Germany. You're representing the broadcaster, so then they've already made their money back in the German territory. So why did they care so much then, particularly if they have a participation, if the U.S. show is sold more outside of the domestic territory?
Well, the issue for them is going to be if the U.S. version comes back to Germany, for example, then it erodes and cannibalizes the market for the original series. And if the original series is successful and the original show, already is making money, and has a wide audience, that's going to be a potential conflict. And I know in some cases, for example, in Germany, we've tried to exclude Germany as a territory from the U.S. Financiers' ability to distribute their product internationally. And that creates, on the scripted side, it's a big knotty problem because they need a territory like Germany, the second largest foreign territory for television, to make their economics work, because they're producing TV at a loss typically on the scripted side. So if they lose Germany, which is, might represent $150,000 an episode, they're in trouble. And so we really have to try and work something out, and it can be difficult.
Yeah, some of the solutions are to give the foreign broadcaster a first right of negotiation, and maybe even a first or last right of refusal, or to freeze the ability or delay the ability to distribute our own product in that territory, or maybe even some other territories in which they are particularly, they have their ties, or to allow them to distribute it in certain areas too. So there are ways in which we can address these distribution issues, but they become very thorny and affect a lot of other rights, because much of what we're dealing with the same people in each of the different territories, and we have other business going on with those entities from other parts of the company, and so it's not just Craig and I making a deal. It's Craig making a deal on behalf of his broadcaster, and me on behalf of not only my own division but our international distribution division, who has their relationships to protect. So it becomes sort of complicated. Yeah,
I'll give you one quick idea about how to solve this problem, which comes up all the time, frankly, and it can actually be a deal killer. Because we've had clients walk away over this particular issue where they have to protect their original foreign version of the show, because that's where they generate the balance of their income. And what we've done is we've said no distribution in that territory. And some territories, if it's Scandinavia, you have a better chance because it's less important, for example, to the U.S. financier. But I would tell Sandra, go back to the network and have them make up the deficit. So if you're getting $1,350,000, let's say, for 1 hour, and Germany's worth $150,000, get the money from the network so you can make your deal. And it's a win-win for us. Maybe not so much for Melinda and the network scene, but at least we get our work done.
I was going to just add two sort of footnotes, and one of them is tangentially related to this, which is neither of you have talked about the creator showrunner receipt of the original format, and that can be a completely double-edged sword, but it will affect this negotiation that they just been having, because sometimes you actually want people to be involved, because either if it's a reality program, you have a unique take on how you find the right people, or how you design the set, or whatever. Or if it's scripted and it's an English language script, you actually value that you deal with the original creator.
I'm going to write that down.
I said sometimes.
Well, that's usually a mandatory part of the deal, I think, with Melinda's, my experience. But what Melinda's adding is sometimes the buyer actually, it's not just a passive payment to the creator.
Sometimes you want them involved, sometimes you regard it as a benefit, and sometimes you regard it as a burden.
Yeah.
And that affects how the negotiation happens. The other thing that I find really annoying is creep, which is, in your hypothetical, you were talking about a show that's successful in Germany and now is on the format. And you may have a certain leverage, or at least weight behind your arguments in that circumstance. But we also have people coming in who have a failed project, who have a show that ran season and died, and who will quote the deal that you made for the really hot series that is still running. And say, and because of these business relationships that exist between the different parts of these companies, they'll say, oh, but remember you did it for this, so you should do it for that. And you keep pointing out the differences, but there tends to be